And plus,
she's starting us off.
I did it first.
You are listening to the Mike Riley Now podcast on the Young Angels of America Network. Follow us by visiting MikeRileyNow.com.
All right, y'all. Welcome to the Mike Riley Now podcast here on the Young Angels of America Network. I am your host, Mr. Mike Riley, of course. Welcome to the show. This is our first live show. It is Thursday, March the 2nd, 2017. Welcome. I have my amazing co-host in the house. I got my girl, Charlie, right over here. My girl, Charlie Sandy, and the world's most infamous Cam Robson. Say what's up.
Hi, guys.
We are also all the way live on Facebook Live. You can log on to my Facebook Live, and we're doing our first live show. So for all of you out there who are listening in podcast land, and that means that everybody that's listening on Stitcher, on TuneIn, everybody that we're not on TuneIn yet, we're working on it. See, I'm just saying off the top of my tongue. I know. I am Donald Trump in the
They're
flesh.
alternative facts.
Right? I got alternative facts. We are also live on iHeartRadio. We are doing our thing on iTunes, on Google Play. Everybody that's picking up this show right now, log on to MikeRileyNow.com. And if you log on to MikeRileyNow.com and just click that link right at the top, you can follow the link and it will take you to us live. I'm going to Facebook it real quick. I'm going to Twitter it real quick. I'm going to do all that cool stuff. And since this is a live show, you're going to see all the cool stuff that happens on live radio. It's like,
Hot damn.
yeah, we're going to do all kind of cool stuff. So welcome back, everybody. Welcome. It is another week, another crazy week of things that have taken us all over the place. So we're going to talk a lot about Donald Trump. We're going to talk about and what's been going on this week. We're going to talk about the Oscars a little bit. We're really going to get into that. But before we get into most of that, last week we talked to Mitchell Schwartz, and he is a candidate running for mayor of Los Angeles. And we're going to have another candidate who is running for the mayor of Los Angeles, Mr. David Hernandez, joining us tonight here in just a few minutes. The election for the LA City election, where we vote in our mayor, our city council people, our measures, all of those things will be coming up next Tuesday on March the 7th. That's my sister's birthday, so I can't forget it. Happy birthday. I'm not going to say my sister's name on the air.
Smart move.
Yeah.
It's okay that you say these girls.
Right, because as the show grows, Charlie and Cam, I'm gonna say y'all's name on there. Yeah, you're live on the air. But this will give us an opportunity, if you live in the city of Los Angeles, which is where we live, to get to know your candidates a lot better, to understand who you're voting for and what they represent. And the cool thing about David Hernandez is he is an independent. He doesn't belong to the Democratic or Republican Party. He has Democratic values, yet he's running as an independent. Now, in the city of Los Angeles, we have a nonpartisan ticket, meaning that people don't disclose their political party when they vote. You just kind of vote who you want to vote for. So that's pretty interesting part of our voting system. But we're definitely going to be talking about that tonight and kind of getting into a lot of different things, a lot of different measures. So he'll be calling in here pretty soon. I want to thank everybody out there who gave me some feedback last week on the show. People were told me that they learned so much from Mitchell Schwartz, and they learned so much from the interview, things that they didn't know before, things that they hadn't really processed. So I mean, it really brought a lot to the table. So I really want to thank everybody who gave me some, or who provided some really good feedback. I really appreciate it. We're gonna keep doing our thing out here. So yeah. So anyway, how y'all doing over here, Charlie and Cam? I mean, how did you guys like the Oscars? What'd you think? I mean, what'd you think about the whole blunder? That was kind of crazy, right?
I think the blunder was absolutely ridiculous, to be honest. I can't believe that it happens. It's like Miss Universe all over again.
Right.
But
Steve Harvey.
yeah, right. But I think Moonlight deserved to win, so I'm happy about it.
I am guilty as hell. I have not seen Moonlight yet. I know, man.
You can't even talk about this.
I know. I haven't seen hardly any of them. Only one I saw was Fences, and I was like, "Yo, that should win best."
Was amazing.
Fences should win best movie because that's the only one I saw. So go
Denzel
figure.
should have won.
I
Denzel should have won.
Right.
I just don't like musicals. So
Cameron has a thing against La La Land.
I really don't like La La Land.
I liked La La Land, but I've seen both, and Moonlight was spectacular.
Right,
I
I
cannot
thought it
hold
was
it in a
filmed
higher
beautifully, but I thought the storyline was boring,
for La La Land.
and I hated the singing.
Well,
That's just your opinion.
I don't know.
I kept getting
couldn't
yelled
tell
at.
you.
I was getting verbally attacked for my opinions on it.
People aggressively like La La Land. Like it's real
frightening.
aggressive passion.
Right. Well, I mean, the funny thing I thought about the Oscars was it was literally a huge Donald Trump diss fest.
Oh,
right?
It was fantastic.
And it was like, they were
Hi
really.
from Meryl.
Yeah, I mean, especially what's my man Jimmy Kimmel was just going hard on Donald Trump.
Big time.
And I think the funny thing is like I think people were kind of waiting for Donald Trump to give a response, like, oh, he's gonna say something back, he might say something back, and he never said anything back. And then did you guys catch his joint session speech?
I didn't know.
You didn't get the opportunity to listen to it?
I didn't have a
his joint
chance.
session speech. Okay, a lot of people listened to Donald Trump's joint session speech that he gave. Oh, okay. Well, this is David Hernandez calling in. Hold on, real quick. Hello.
Hello. This is David Hernandez.
David Hernandez. Hey, Mr. Hernandez. Thank you for calling into the show. Welcome to the Mike Rally Now podcast.
Well, thank you for all that you do.
Oh yeah, of course, absolutely. We got to give you a round of applause here. That's what we do to all of our guests on the show. Thank you so much for calling in. All right, so for all of our listeners out there who are listening, and we are all the way live, we are speaking to Mr. David Hernandez. He is running for mayor of the city of Los Angeles. We have an election coming up next week on March the 7th. You can follow him on Twitter at Dave for LA, and you can also log on to David for Mayor 2017.com. Excuse me, David for Mayor 2017.com. Thank you so much, Mr. Hernandez, for calling in. We really appreciate it. To get this started off, we have an election coming up here in about a week, and
what?
I know. Who knew, right?
Surprise!
I like your sense of humor. That's an A+ for me.
Yeah, it's like who.
Thought we just got over our election.
Right? Yeah. All these elections, geez, can we take a break? Voter fatigue. But there are a lot of different measures and a lot of different things that are on the ballot that a lot of Angelenos really don't know a lot about. And this can really affect a lot of the economic value that comes within our city. And, it can affect a lot of things. And, and I understand that you took care of someone who was dying of AIDS and was helped by medical marijuana. And two of the biggest, so I understand that, just saying that maybe you may be somebody who kind of supports, those particular measures. And two of the biggest measures that are on the ballot coming up is Measure M and Measure N. Can you give us a little background on those particular measures and tell us how you feel about that?
Well, and I guess the perspective that I'm coming from is more of a patient advocate rather than trying to find a way to raise more money for the city. And so in reviewing Mr. M.
Mr. Hernandez, you're kind of breaking up a little bit. If you can,
okay.
Yeah, sorry.
Is that better?
Yeah,
okay.
That's
like I said, my perspective is that as a patient advocate, and so when the fees and the taxes and the licensing, all I see is that the cost for non-recreational, but for more medicinal, are only going to increase, and I think that's detrimental. When I look at the other programs and issues that the city tried to pass ordinance over with regards to regulation and licensing, it took them over 3 years to come up with a street vending ordinance. It took them 2 years to come up with an ordinance for golf carts at the municipal golf course.
Right. Mr. Hernandez, I'm sorry. I can still barely understand you. I'm really sorry. I don't mean to cut you off. Yeah, I don't know if you can get to higher ground or to near a window or something like that. But
yeah, let me move over to a
sure thing.
How is that? Is that any better?
No, it's not any better. I'm sorry. Maybe I can.
We'll work with it.
Yeah, we'll work with it. We will get through this. I just want to make sure. I want to make sure everybody can. So this is our live. This is live radio. Oh yeah. This is live radio right here. Log on to MikeRallyNow.com. Click on the link. Right. Go ahead and follow at Dave for LA on Twitter. Speaking to Mr. David Hernandez here, running for mayor of the city of Los Angeles. Yeah.
Yep, and we're live. And
we are live.
That's great.
I know, right?
How about now?
I can hear you a lot better now. Sounds good.
Oh, okay. I walked outside. Maybe
Okay,
That's
awesome.
perfect,
Yeah, that's
thank
perfect.
you.
Yeah, we got to get those bars up, as they say in the rap, in the
Okay.
hip hop community. I'm sorry, but you were saying about Measure M and Measure N. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I sat there and read them, and unfortunately, and especially for the listeners, is that the ballot titles and the summaries are very well crafted by individuals that do it in a way to get you to vote for it, and so
Right.
it's really hard to sift through a lot of that, and many times you may be reading initiative thinking that it's presenting an issue that you support or a position, and it's the exact opposite. And so,
Well,
I guess
sure.
yeah,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I guess my objection is that it's focused on generating more fees for the city as opposed to making it the access easier for medicinal,
Right.
and that for recreational, you're going to pay a little bit more, but I think it's short-sighted just how Proposition 64 was short-sighted.
Right. Well, with measures like that, when they say it generates revenue for the city, on the flip side, couldn't that be seen as a good thing? I mean, does the city need more resources? Isn't it more like a tax versus something like that?
And because of Proposition 218, whenever the city is going to levy a tax or a fee, it has to go to a vote of the people.
Right.
However, in many instances, they'll propose a measure and it's going to raise revenue for a specific thing. However, there's already revenue going to a particular area, and what happens more often than not is when the new revenue stream is created, the old revenue stream is diverted. Right. So we really have to be careful because it isn't adding to, it's actually supplementing, or rather substituting a previous revenue stream.
Okay, and for all my listeners out there, we are speaking about Measure M and Measure N. So if you have your sample ballot, right, which is right here, you can go on into your sample ballot, into your LA City sample ballot, and check that out. And really, and thank you, Mr. Hernandez, for giving your perspective on that. My next question has to do with Measure H, which talks about how the increase in sales tax in the city can go towards housing for the homeless. And this is a big deal here in LA. I understand you are a native. You are a native to North Hollywood, if I'm not mistaken, right? I did a little bit of research on it.
Actually, I was born in Lincoln Heights.
Okay, born in Lincoln Heights. You're from the east side. Okay.
Yeah, my family moved to North Hollywood when I was 7. So
okay, awesome.
Technically, I've only been here 61 years in North Hollywood.
Yeah. Well,
so it's I qualify.
Yeah, absolutely. You do definitely qualify. It's always good to have natives running for office, I think. But on the flip side of that, the homeless problem is something that we've seen in this city, and it seems to have grown a little bit over time. What are your feelings on Measure H? Do you think the homeless will actually get housing out of this? I mean, it sounds good, but will it actually help?
Well, the voters just passed the Triple H, which was on the November ballot, which was to provide housing only, and so that passed. With this one is supposed to provide the social services to provide that for those that get the housing. However, this is a countywide tax, so it was only the city of Los Angeles that passed Measure H. So the other 87 cities within the county of Los Angeles, this money is going to be used for also building housing for them as well. And so it's a very inadequate measure in that, just like with Measure H, the profit motive which exists for individuals in the permitted housing industry who are getting $300,000 to $400,000 per unit for a homeless individual for
Right.
housing, it really doesn't end up, benefiting the homeless individual that much, especially when if we have, and it's, at the low count, 26,000 homeless in Los Angeles,
Right.
and
Yeah,
a
that's
lot more in LA County.
Yeah.
That Measure Triple H was designed to get 1,000 homeless people off the streets a year. Well, and it was a 10-year plan. Even so, it fall way short of the mark. However, there are other options that were available that are not being supported, such as congregate housing. Now, USC did a project addressing, what can we do in the immediate for the homeless in Los Angeles, and they designed a congregate housing unit, which is much like the inside of a college dorm. And which meets all building codes, which is portable, houses one comfortably for $18,000. Now, so the profit motive has to be taken out of homelessness,
Right. Sure.
And
just like in a lot of our comments, I believe, so yeah,
Yep.
definitely. Healthcare and everything else, but that is a whole nother discussion. But yeah, I mean,
right. As far as Measure H, I don't support it,
right,
because of the way in which the money is being distributed. And I mean, I met with a wraparound service provider yesterday, and this was Hope of the Valley in Van Nuys, and they showed me their model, the prototype from USC. They showed me the wraparound services, and Los Angeles has had the city and the county LASA organization for over a decade, and in that time they've spent over $1 billion on homelessness, and the problem is considerably worse. So I'm very apprehensive about giving individuals with a failed track record more of your money.
Right. All right. Well, and then for all my listeners listening, that is going to be Measure H. Please look it up on your ballot. Mr. Hernandez, we are coming up against the break. We really want to thank you for joining us. Everybody go out and vote on March 7th. It's very important. Look him up. He is on Twitter at Dave for Mayor. You can look him up online. Your website, once again, is...
David for Mayor 2017.
All right, davidformayor2017.com. Thank you so much, Mr. Hernandez. God bless you. Have a great night.
Thank
you very much.
You're most welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, y'all. We had to talk through our break right there. Sorry about that. We normally don't do that. For everybody who's listening on Facebook Live, for everybody who's listening on the show right now, that was Mr. David Hernandez. He is running for the mayor of City of Los Angeles. Thank you so much, Mr. Hernandez, for joining us. That is always awesome to get candidates on the show. Like I said, David for Mayor, and then you can also check out at Dave for Hernandez or Dave for Mayor on Twitter. So check him out, yeah. And everybody out there, vote next Tuesday on March the 7th. All right, let's get into the nitty gritty around here. Everybody log on to MikeRileyNow.com. Click the link on the very top that says listen live. You can listen to the show live. You can call into the show if you want to call into the show and get into the discussion. The number is 310-910-9113. You can call into the show. You can talk to us. We'll see if we can get you some time. All right. Let's talk about this whole Russia thing. Okay. Now, we got to get this thing out the bag. What is going on with Russia? What's the big Russian deal, right? Okay. Now, what happened today, right? So Jeff Sessions, who is our attorney general, about to be our former attorney general as far as I'm fucking concerned, right? And sooner or later. Yeah. He apparently got caught in a lie. When he did his testimony, when he did his hearing, basically what happened was, because the Trump administration was being investigated for their Russian ties, it's a big deal. They're trying to see if they had any complicity in leaking information and hacking into the DNC and swaying the election one way or the other. There's a big consensus going on that the Russians and Donald Trump and the Trump administration are, holding hands, although the Trump administration denies it, right? So Jeff Sessions, when Al Franken asked Jeff Sessions, have you had any meetings with any Russian ambassadors or anybody from Russia during the time of the election? He was like, I know.
What are you talking about?
Nope, didn't happen.
I don't even speak Russian.
I did not have international relations with that country.
I can't find Russia on a map, let alone communicate with them.
So it turns out Jeff Sessions was lying. Jeff Sessions is a senator from Alabama. He went and spoke with a Russian ambassador. Now, this is perfectly fine for senators to do. They can speak to ambassadors from different countries. No big deal. But the point is that, he lied about it. And because he's the attorney general and it's his job to investigate crimes, especially crimes that take place within the government, well, he can't investigate that crime. He's complicit.
He's part of it.
He's part of it. So he had to step himself away.
Liar.
He had to recant himself or whatever that term is. He had to leave the investigation, and Nancy Pelosi called on him to resign.
He's recused himself, hasn't he?
Oh, recused himself.
That's
the word I'm looking for. I told you my vocabulary isn't wide, but please do me a favor. Yeah,
I'm the thesaurus of this group.
See, I'm supposed to help
you are the one
but
with the
I
British
can't
accent.
Even say the word.
Yeah.
Thesaurus.
Thesaurus. That sounds like a dinosaur. Okay, but anyway.
Do you think he saurus?
Do you think he's...
Oh!
Yeah, no. Every time somebody makes one of those jokes.
Appropriate use.
But, okay, so if he's a senator and he's allowed to talk to a Russian ambassador, what's the big deal? What is the big deal with what's going on with Russia? What is all of this Russia stuff that's going on in the news, and why is it such a big deal? I have a lot of my friends who really don't know the history of the United States and Russia. Like, why is it that the United States and Russia have this long beef with each other?
You ever heard of the Cold War, son?
I mean, okay, so I'm going to explain this shit, and I'm going to really get it down as much as I can, and I'm going to break down Vladimir Putin a little bit, and we're going to talk about the Trump and Putin relationship a little bit, okay? And I need people, if y'all want to call into the show, go ahead, 310-910-9113. All right, just dial it on your cellular phone.
Please call.
Anyway.
Cameron's not.
She's lonely. All right.
True, she is.
You like one of those kids on those commercials. Please help. Anyway, but okay, so let's take it back to let's take it back a little bit in history. Let's rewind it back to like World War II. Okay, so after World War II, right? There's pretty much three winners. There's us. There's pretty much the UK, England, and there's Russia, right? Now everybody says that the United States came out on top in the war, and we pretty much did. But Russia kind of had a hand in that too. Now the reason why Russia didn't get as much accolade, at least in the West, as we did, is simply because, they lost a lot of people in World War II. They lost, a couple million. I mean, it was pretty bad.
For the longest time, it was fought solely on their fronts.
Right, and they were just tough. They were able to defend themselves from the Nazis. So
don't invade Russia in the winter.
Exactly. It's hardcore.
Stupid idea.
Hardcore. So after World War II, this idea of Marxism and communism, I suppose is what the best word I can use for it, started to spread around, and Russia became what's called the Soviet Union. They took all of those war-torn countries in Eastern Europe pretty much, and they made kind of like what we have in the United States of America, right? We have like all these different kind of states, and we're all united under one nation. They pretty much did the same thing, and they called themselves the USSR or the Soviet Union or whatever. And they started taking over lots of parts of Eastern Europe. If for many of you who are old enough, you remember the Berlin Wall was what separated Eastern Germany from Western Germany. And one side was the communist side, and the Germans ran that, the Russians ran that. And so I'm going to fast forward a little bit here. So the Cold War, that's a big deal. That's a big thing that happens. There's the Cuban Missile Crisis, and basically
the Red Scare.
The Red Scare, because we on the West were afraid of the spread of communism. We didn't want communism to spread at all. And we tried our best to stop it. Hence, you know, the Cold War, the Red Scare.
Yeah.
You got to look all this stuff up on Google.
Terrified. Hence why it's called Red Scare.
It was called the Red Scare, yeah, because we were just terrified of this communism.
You like anything happened, you got suspicious of your neighbor. Boom, he's a communist. He's getting taken away. It's a very. We were just as scared of communism as they were of capitalism. It's very much seeing it's a two-sided situation.
Absolutely. Not only that, but Russia was the next superpower to arm themselves with nuclear weapons. So after World War II, people were like, "What the hell is that?" When we dropped the bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, people were blown away. But after a while, you know, the Russians got a hold of that technology too. So it became an arms race, right? So this is the Cold War. Okay. So fast forward a little bit further. After the Cold War and things like that kind of settled down, the Russians invaded Afghanistan, okay? When the Russians invaded Afghanistan, this is when we started helping out Osama bin Laden and people like that to push the Russians out of Afghanistan. I think Osama bin Laden was actually quoted in saying, once the Russians get pushed out of Afghanistan, the Soviet Union is going to fall. And sure enough, like hell, after the Russians got pushed out of Afghanistan, the Soviet Union fell. The Berlin Wall fell, and everything else crumbled along with it. There was no more Soviet Union. It went back to Russia and all the little Eastern European countries that were around it, like Crimea and Ukraine and Kazakhstan. I can't pronounce. I'll never try to do that again.
Kazakhstan.
Yes. You know what I meant to say. I can't. Everybody know what I meant. But anyway, they all became independent countries again. And so, you know, fast forward a little bit more. There's this guy named Vladimir Putin.
Might have heard of him.
You might have heard of him. He came up in this whole era of the Soviet Union. He used to work for Boris Yeltsin in the KGB. What the KGB is pretty much like the secret police of Russia. You know, and the KGB,
badass motherfuckers.
Yeah, they were pretty much bad motherfuckers. Exactly. They were some bad dudes. And you know, Vladimir Putin was a hardcore dude. I mean, he was a straight killer. After the Soviet Union fell, he fled and he lived. I think he lived in I forget which country he went to, Switzerland or something like that.
Some neutral place.
Yeah, some neutral place like that.
Full of chocolate and cheese.
Right. And then in the late 90s, he came back to Russia. When he came back to Russia, he started hanging out. He started working his way up in the Kremlin. The Kremlin's like the Russian equivalency to the White House. He started working his way up in the Kremlin, and he worked his way the hell up. He became president, I believe, in 2000. And
then he stayed there.
And then he just stayed there. Because Russia has the same rules that we have, where you only can work 2 terms. But he did some sort of finagling or something like that, where he was able to serve a 3rd term. I got to get a little deeper into that.
And the 5th.
Yeah,
and it's
so he can just
never
keep on
ending.
running. And he's
23,000.
He's killed a lot of
He's
his
eternal.
political rivals.
Killed.
You know, he's you know, Vladimir Putin, for all intents and purposes, is just a straight Russian gangster. He's just a
Pretty
Russian
much.
mob. He's just a Russian mobster.
It's like the mafia's running the country. It's absolutely crazy.
It's
like the
a
KGB never
kleptocracy.
left.
Yeah,
Right.
it's kind of uncomfortable to think about that. Like, anyone that
Disobeys him.
got in his way was like,
Right,
in
and
the
you
back of the
or you
head.
get shipped off to some Russian prison to never be seen again.
Yeah.
or you're never heard from again. Just
Just-
period. There's just nothing else.
You know,
Dot,
if you're a
dot.
journalist out there and you speak out against
No,
Vladimir
no.
Putin, he will pop your ass.
Yeah.
He's not, you know, he's not playing. He's one of the richest men in the world, by far. He's been accused of being involved in a lot of human trafficking, big things in the aluminum trade. I mean, this man's is just a straight G. You know, but anyway, we'll talk about this on the other side of the break. You're listening to the Mike Riley Now podcast here on the Young Angels of America Network. We got Charlie, we got Cam up in here, and we got everybody that's watching and listening. We'll be right back. MikeRileyNow.com.
You are listening to the Mike Riley Now podcast on the Young Angels of America Network. Follow us by visiting MikeRileyNow.com.
All right, y'all, welcome back. My bad. Cam's over here telling me her headphones are too loud.
Nah, she's being weak. It's fine.
I'm not a baby.
You're
You
a
are.
bit of a baby.
You are not a baby. All right, y'all. Welcome back to the Mike Rally Now podcast here on the Young Angels of America Network. Log on to MikeRallyNow.com. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all that cool stuff at Mike Rally Now. We got Charlie and Cam up in here, and my girl Doc Riddy. We didn't shout her out early. We forgot to.
Shameful.
She is the executive director of the Young Angels of America Network. 100. Yeah, we love it. All right, y'all. Let's keep on this Russia thing. Okay, so let's fast forward to today. Okay. Now, Donald Trump and the conservatives, pretty much for the most part, have this belief or have this. Donald Trump during his campaign was arguing on we should get along with Russia. We need to get along with Russia, he says. If we get along with Russia, they can help us defeat ISIS. Oh, and I'm gonna fill you in a little bit on the ISIS thing real quick about Russia. A couple years ago, probably about 6 years ago, in Syria, the Syrian people on the outskirts of the cities, outside of like Damascus and Aleppo and stuff like that, they were starting to lose a lot of their crops. They couldn't keep up their way of life based on climate change. So a lot of them moved into the city. When they moved into the city, they realized that they didn't have any resources. Bashar al-Assad was somebody who was taking a lot of their natural resources, selling a lot of it to Russia and making bucks off it. He's becoming a billionaire off of it. The people protested in the streets. Nobody know who shot who first, but basically the Syrian government started killing its own citizens, and hence there's the Syrian civil war. Bashar al-Assad and Vladimir Putin are good friends, and the only other place that there's a Russian military base outside of Russia, it happens to be in Syria. So there's a lot of interest in Russia that happens to go through Syria. The economy is failing a lot in Russia, and so because of that, Vladimir Putin gets a lot of his kickback from Syria. So that's why when we started arming the rebels in Syria to help them fight Bashar al-Assad, and Vladimir Putin started helping Bashar al-Assad fight the rebels. So in a weird way, we're caught up in a little conflict, which is why him and Barack Obama were beefing so much. And a couple years ago, Vladimir Putin, because he grew up in the Soviet Union, wanted to reunite the Soviet Union. So he invaded Crimea. He invaded Ukraine.
Oh, he did not know it was part of Russia.
Yeah.
He was like, oh, we keep missing the borders. Oh, I forgot that's not part of Russia. Yeah.
Gosh dang it.
Yeah.
Always happens,
Always.
Forget your own borders so often.
It's like forgetting my glasses.
Yeah,
and
they're on my head. Like, who knew?
But I didn't know Russia was there. So Vladimir Putin pretty much annexed those countries as much as he could. So anyway, so he's trying to fight a lot of the Syrian rebels. And the thing about it is a lot of the rebels that we armed, that we helped to fight Bashar al-Assad and Vladimir and the Russians, happen to have turned into ISIS fighters. And they're armed, and they started, doing a lot of this stuff. So Syria has a war on 3 different fronts. One's Syria, or one's the ISIS, one are the Syrian rebels, and the other one is, the Syrian civil war and ISIS, essentially, is basically what's happening. So Donald Trump says we should get along with Russia to help us defeat ISIS. And if we get along with Russia, that means that we are going to have a safer world. We'll have a superpower on our side. Donald Trump really respects Vladimir Putin. He said it straight up. He likes the way he runs his country. Democrats, or people on the left, have been adamant about these ties to Russia. And a lot of conservatives, this is what they say. Why not get along with Russia if we get along with Saudi Arabia, right? Because Hillary Clinton and the Democrats and a lot of people like that, and Barack Obama, yeah, they have shook hands with all those Saudi princes, with all those people who in Saudi Arabia, who are pretty much bad people. And, it's kind of like a thing where it's like, look at the hypocrisy on the left, because you're sitting here pointing the finger at us for trying to get along with Russia, and you have no problem cozying up to Saudi Arabia. First of all, I'm going to tell you that's a fucking rumor. It's not true. The left is not down with Saudi Arabia either. Most of us. But I want to know what you think. But anyway, I personally don't think we should get it along with neither one of them. We should issue sanctions on both of them, in my opinion, and there has to be a smart way to do it. But we get a lot of our oil for cheap from Saudi Arabia, right? So so Donald Trump uses that as a weapon, and he says, why not get along with Russia? Why not have Russia as an ally in this fight and use them as help in our quest to make this a better world, in a sense, right?
I think the issue with Donald Trump's view on getting along with Russia is he seems to be willing to bend over backwards to get relations with Russia, to the point where I fear America's ideals would be compromised in the relationship. You know, he's... I'm going to throw a little shout out to my own brother here, who constantly comes home and goes, "How's Putin's lapdog doing in our presidential seat?" I think it's very much a question of, for his own economic interests and for his strange relationship he has with Russia.
Well, that's a good question. You know, you said his economic interest, Charlie.
Yeah.
We haven't seen... Well, there's a big rumor floating around the campfire that Donald Trump is in some sort of financial stipulation with the Russians, which is why we can't see his tax returns, right? You know, Donald Trump's not releasing his tax returns. We might as well go ahead and forget about that. He claims that the American people don't want to see him or don't care.
We want to see him.
I would love to see him personally.
I mean, hell, I'm not the American people, but we want to see him.
It's okay, Charlie. You're down with us.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Please release them.
Yeah. Well,
Please.
okay.
If I say please with
If you release them, Mike will run a late night talk show.
I'll do it.
24 hours.
24 hours.
I'll work for the Trump network.
I'll do it too.
Yeah, he will say, "I love Trump" on air if you release your tax
I'll work for the
returns.
Trump network. But if he listens, and Donald Trump does listen to this show, by the way. He listens to all the shows.
Oh yeah, anything that says his name in it, he's there.
I tag him when I do the
Hello,
tags
you
in the
giant
show, so.
mean Satsuma. How are you?
Jesus, Charlie.
I know, Charlie.
Watch
This
your
is personal.
language.
I know, Lord.
This is PG.
Yeah.
He started the
Fuck,
show
Charlie,
with the F word.
Jesus.
Anyway.
What's your language?
Don't say those words around fucking children. Jesus.
Okay, moving on. Russia.
Anyway, moving on. Dang, Cam has a potty mouth.
No, I don't.
But moving on. But this love affair with that Donald Trump has with Russia, not love affair, but this
Economic love affair.
Well, I mean, and that's kind of the rumor, right? But just kind of focusing on his reasoning for it. Do you think, and this is something I'm asking everybody out there too, what do you think? Do you think it might, should we get along with Russia? Should we create this relationship with this longtime enemy, that not necessarily enemy, but adversary that we've had for all these different years, in order to combine superpowers together? Would that be a better thing? Wouldn't it be better for Donald Trump's argument is, wouldn't it be better if we got along with all these different world superpowers? Wouldn't that be a better thing? I don't know.
I think it comes from, I mean, I would certainly like us to be less
At each other's throats.
Yeah, because no one wants to be at the verge of war with someone for so long. From the Cold War onwards.
We have literally been at the break of war with Russia for
so long.
Decades.
But I don't think that there is an easy compromise in sight, like Donald Trump so claims, that there is just like this magic way that we can all suddenly get along all buddy-buddy. And I think that it's a little naive of him to assume that we can just get along with Russia like that. Like, we can just decide to get along with Russia.
Well, that's something that he's kind of deciding, because, and I know you said you didn't listen to his joint session speech, but during Donald Trump's joint session speech, he brought that up. He said, it's time for us, and I'm paraphrasing, of course, so forgive me, Mr. President, but he said, it's time for us to start getting along, making new friends out of old enemies, something along those lines.
And tell me how you plan to do that.
And tell me how he plans to do half the crap he said.
Yeah, no, exactly. He never explains anything. And I think that's the issue that I have with it, is because I don't believe that he will uphold American interests while trying to pursue this. And I can't say with full confidence that he will pursue this as anything, that he will pursue this solely for the good of the American people. I think he will pursue it for his own interests more than anything else,
and his corporate friends,
and all of these,
because he has so many other people that he's trying to please that aren't the general
that's the
public.
thing. I think a really interesting thing about Trump is, however narcissistic he may be, he really wants to please other people, but like very specific people. He wants the American people.
Few.
Yeah, he wants the American people to like him. But then he also wants who he deems most powerful to like him, which would be Putin, which would be his other friendly billionaires. So he's sort of
neighborhood billionaire.
He craves this approval, and since so many of these powerful men are, borderline fascist kind of extremities. He sort of goes in that route because he so desperately wants to please them, and I think it's a really interesting view.
And on top of that, I think that Donald Trump admires people like, Vladimir Putin to a certain degree, to the point where I think, and then this is just a personal observation, I think Trump wants to run the United States like Putin runs Russia.
Yeah, that's the terrifying thing I'm coming with the whole relationship.
Right.
Why does he want the relationship for anything other than to become like Russia?
Right. And but that's what we're dealing with here. We're dealing with a president who wants to turn back the tide on a lot of the older things that we were used to, and he wants to go into a situation where we're friends with the Russians. We're no longer fighting with each other. Now we're all getting along with each other, and even if that means we're getting along with a dictator. But on the flip side, we get along well with Saudi Arabia, and Saudi Arabia is way worse than any Russia. Saudi Arabia has extremely horrible human rights. I mean, women can't even drive there. And don't get me wrong, I understand they live under Sharia law. I understand that's them. They can do their own thing. They can, if you believe that, they don't have a secular government. Their Sharia law, their constitution is based off the Quran.
But there shouldn't, and obviously this is my personal opinion as someone that is not extremely well versed in Sharia law, but there should not be a law in place that hinders half the human race from basic things like an education. That's when it gets to the point of, why do you view education as such a dangerous thing?
Yeah, and Donald Trump, I think, not to keep just, I hate, we say that man's name so much on this damn show, it's ridiculous.
I know, I swear to
But
God.
he's the most famous person in the world.
I think one day we can go through a show and just not talk about him. We should talk about
I think we
other
should call
things
him...
going
We'll talk about
on.
chocolate.
I'm starting to think we should call him the Trumpster Dumpster. I'm starting to think that's a better name for him.
I like Cheeto in Chief personally.
Cheeto in Chief, I like it as well.
You're
Or Twitler.
commanding Cheeto in Chief.
I like Twitler. Twitler was pretty cool. But yeah, even on the education issue, it's kind of the same thing. You're kind of dealing with the same monster where, even in his joint session speech, he mentioned the idea of choice within education. Basically how they kind of want to do healthcare where you have access to it, but you don't have it. I have access to $1 million, but I don't, or I have access to $1 million house, like you were saying the other day. But
I have access to go to any college I want.
Right.
Can I go?
It doesn't.
Hell
it
no.
doesn't. It doesn't stack up. But and that's kind of the funny thing about it. But as far as this Russia thing is concerned, I really want to know what y'all out there think. As far as our relationship with Russia, should we let Donald Trump go through with this thing, and should we all become friends? Questions that I think are big ones to ask. All right, y'all. Well, that is our show for this week. This is our first live show. God help us all if this is how it's going to be. I was playing.
It wasn't that bad.
It was awesome. I really want to thank David Hernandez for coming through. Always remember to go vote next Tuesday on March 7th in the city of Los Angeles. I want to thank every single last one of you for listening. God bless Charlie. God bless my girl Cam. God bless Brooke. God bless every single last one of you who watched on Facebook Live and listened to us on Spreaker and everything else. And please remember to quote a great scholar, democracy is not a spectator sport. It sure the hell isn't. You have to get out there. You have to get involved. We are all in this together. So get informed, get involved. Tell your neighbors about the show. Go out there and join your local Democratic Party. All right, y'all. We'll see you next week. Cheers.
On the Young Angels of America Network. Follow us by visiting MikeRileyNow.com.